Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Chris, and in today's video I am participating in the Thrift Flip Road Trip, but more on that later. I have got 4 thrift flips in this video that I'm sure you are going to love. So with all that being said, let's begin. DIY number 1. I picked up this sled on Whatnot. If you're not familiar with that, it is like an auction platform online, and a lot of times you can find some really good deals versus going to a thrift store. But as soon as I saw this, I knew I needed it to make it over for Christmas, and I only paid $5 for it. But I am going to go ahead and use vintage linen, and I am also going to be using marquee. Both are DIY paints, and I absolutely love the marquee. I think it is the most gorgeous paint for Christmas. But I'm going to go ahead and I am going to paint the runners in the red, and then I am going to paint the remainder in the vintage linen. And of course, you can use whichever colors you decide. This is just how I decided to do mine. All right, after I get those colors on and I've got it dried down, I'm going to go ahead and distress the sled, and I'm just going to use just a little sander, and I'm going to go over it pretty much everywhere, but still a light distressing. I want it to look a little aged. That's what I love. If you don't like the distressing, leave it out. But I'm just going to go over this whole thing, and this also helps break down any kind of clumping or anything like that on the paint. So it'll help smooth it out and prep it for a transfer. And I do use this little broom that I had gotten a while back from the Dollar Tree, and I use it to wipe away the dust. I don't want to take a paper towel and wipe it because I'm afraid I'll get white on red or the red on the white, and it will still be maybe a little wet and smear. So I do use this brush to wipe away any dust, just for caution. Now, when I go to sand the red part, I do change out my sanding pad with a clean piece of sandpaper. That way I don't get any of the white again on the red, but I do go ahead and also distress the runners. Now, if you notice, I did not paint the bottom side of the sled, and well, if you want to paint the bottom side of yours, go ahead, but I didn't think it was necessary. Next, I have got this transfer from IOD. It is the Yuletide transfer, and it's got this beautiful pair of cardinals in it that I knew would be absolutely perfect for this. So I am going to go ahead and place mine just a little bit below center. And I'm doing that because I know that I'm going to want to have some bells hanging down. And once I've got the placement figured out, I'm going to take the little tool that comes in with the transfers, and I am going to burnish or rub the image onto my sled. And you just want to take your time with this process. This stuff, the transfers, it just varies as far as how easy or how difficult it is to rub them into place. It's going to depend on the paint you used, how rough the surface is, how smooth, how glossy. If you put a sealer down, I have found that if I put a sealer on first, sometimes that transfer is just a pain to get off. But again, just take your time, lift up the image slowly. If nothing is transferring, then just lay it back down and rub some more. Now, the sled has some ridges on it, and I decided I was going to go ahead and cut the transfer as it was sitting there and then peel it off. And I did that for the first 2 ridges. And then on the final ridge, I decided to try and cut it after I removed the transfer sheet. And honestly, I really like the way it looks if you cut the transfer prior to removing the transfer sheet versus the other way. It gave it a straighter cut. The final one where I had removed the transfer and then slid it and finished rubbing it in is a little bit more jagged. So as far as the technique to use, it's going to be your preference. Okay, next I'm just going to go over this with some sandpaper just to help it blend in a little bit. And you want to do this lightly. And then I'm just going to go ahead and put a sealer on it. I am going to use liquid patina, and I decided to use this because it says it's good for indoor and outdoor use, and whoever buys it may want to put it on their front porch. Who knows? So at least it's protected. And when I put the sealer on, I do go ahead and do it over the lightest color first, and then I'll put it on the darker color. That way that darker color does not bleed into my light color, because I guarantee you that red is going to get on that brush as you're sealing it. All right, next I'm just going to go ahead and take some bells and thread onto some jute twine or jute rope, and I'm just going to get an idea how long I want them hanging down, and then I will tie each bell at the end of each side of the rope. Okay, so I've got the bells tied. And I'm going to make this very simple because I don't want to take away from the beauty of these cardinals. These are just some greenery I've got from Walmart. And then I had picked these up off of Whatnot, but they're just some sugared berries. And so I'm just going to make this easy peasy simple. And I'm just going to tie some jute string around the center to gather those pieces and keep them together. And then I'll just wrap my bells around it, tying it off. And then I'm just going to go ahead and use my staple gun and staple that in place. And then once I get those staples in, I don't like the way they're exposed, so I'm just going to reposition some of those little sugared berries. And as far as the center where I tied the bells onto the swag, I'm just going to hot glue a sugar berry I pulled off. And then this project will be complete, and you guys will have to let me know, what do you think about this sled makeover? And as I said in the beginning, this video is part of the Thrift Flip Road Trip Open Challenge. It is hosted by Unicorn Dust Designs and the Crafting Cousins with special guest host, Happiness Created. And I am so excited to be participating in this. And I hope you guys will follow the playlist I will have in my description box, because there is not only going to be some creative and gorgeous DIYs, you are also going to be able to enter into a giveaway. Some of the participants will be offering a giveaway, and in order to enter, you just have to comment on everybody's video, and then a drawing will be done. And entries are going to be open through the 23rd of November 2024. And I will have the giveaway rules also in my description box. But if you guys are popping in from the playlist, I'd like to welcome you, and I hope you will consider hitting that subscribe button and becoming part of my DIY family. I don't just do flips, I do DIYs in a numerous amount of ways. I'm telling you, I just love to create. But thrift flipping is my favorite. And to all of my current subscribers, I just want to thank you guys for your support, and just to let you know I love you. And with all that being said, let's continue. DIY number 2. Okay, I found this vintage pillar candle mold. Boy, that's a mouthful. But I saw it and I absolutely loved the shape of it. I could just picture this for Christmas. And I'm also, once again, going to be using the Yuletide transfer sheet from IOD. And this transfer book is absolutely gorgeous, you guys. I mean, look at these images. I sure hope you guys were able to get your hands on some. Now, if you don't have the IOD transfer or this particular book, you can use any kind of transfers. I know that you can find transfers on Amazon. You probably find some maybe in craft stores. I'm not sure. I'm not sure there, but you don't have to use these specific transfers. But I am going to go ahead and use the fairies for this, and I am going to be using, I believe, 3 fairies. And then I've also got this little trimming piece here that I thought would be beautiful on the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and lay that piece on the bottom just to give me an idea of how much height I've got at the top. So when I lay down my fairies, it's in a good position and I don't accidentally overlap the two pieces. And then of course, we're just going to go through the same process. And I am not going to go over this whole process. People show the whole process on several different videos, but I am just going to skip over this. Just know you're going to burnish this down or rub it down, and you're just going to lift that transfer sheet as you're rubbing down and making sure it sticks. And then once you've got that off, you just want to go back over it with that transfer sheet and just kind of rub it down to make sure it's all in place. Now, I guess I got a little too much in a hurry and I did not clean my surface on that first transfer. So I had one heck of a time getting it to rub down. So I'm just going to take some alcohol and I'm going to spray that on there and wipe it down with a lint-free cloth. I use coffee filters, but you just use whatever you usually use is fine. And then I'm just going to proceed by putting the fairies on. And after I have all three fairies in place, I'm going to take that trimming and I'm just going to cut it down just to make it a little bit more narrow to work with. It was just easier. And as I lay this down, I am going to start where the handle is as far as placing it down. It just made more sense because there's a seam right along where that handle is. So I figured it would just look a little better if I started there. Now, because this is a rounded surface, and we all know when you try to wrap something around a round surface, it gets uneven. So I do this in sections. I first start by laying a strip of it down, and then I'll burnish it, and I will trim off in a spot where it's going to be easy to meet up again. And I'll just cut that off and I'll finish burnishing that down. And then after I get that piece of transfer sheet pulled up, I'll take the strip once again and I'll just match it up, lay it down in a section and trim it off. And I'll keep doing this until I work my way all the way around. And would you guys look how pretty that looks? You know, I'm really not into fairies, but these fairies on this piece is, in my opinion, perfection. But I'm going to go ahead and spray that with a clear matte enamel just to protect those transfers, especially since I'm selling it. And then once I get it all dry, I'm just going to put some floral arrangements in it. I've got these pieces here. Both of them came from Hobby Lobby. And I'm just going to trim them up and put them in there, fluff them out until I like it. And you guys will have to let me know what you think. DIY number 3. Next up, I've got this wood candle holder, and I actually purchased this from Upcycled by Bree on one of her Whatnot auctions. And I'm going to first start by cleaning this up really well, getting all the dirt and grime off of it, because I am going to be reselling this. And as a matter of fact, I'm reselling all of this on a Whatnot auction, which is going to be happening November 17th at 11:15 a.m. Central Time. So hopefully you guys can join me. And you don't have to purchase anything. Just come and see what it's all about. I'll have the links in the description box. But I'm going to go ahead and just take some foam and I'm going to stick it down in there. I'm not going to use any glue. That way, if whoever buys it wants to use this all year, everything will come out easily. And then I have got one of these flocked Christmas trees that the Dollar Tree puts out. And I grabbed a bunch of them as soon as they put them on the shelf because I love these things. They're absolutely beautiful for $1.25 a piece. But I'm just going to go ahead, take some hot glue, put on the stem, and then just put it in that foam. And I've got these pine cones. And I believe they came from Lowe's. My son-in-law actually used to work there, and he grabbed me a whole bunch of them when they were trying to get rid of them. And I donated all but one bag. And I'm just going to take these, and I'm going to place some pine cones around And I'm just looking for the smaller ones in the bag and just making it to where they fit and look nice. And once those are in there, it needs a little bit of color. And so I've got these berries that I pick up from Hobby Lobby. And I do a lot of my shopping at Hobby Lobby because they're really the only ones I have in town, unless I want to take a 30-minute drive to go to Michael's or Joann's. But most of the time, I just don't have time to make that trip. And so I'm going to just cut these off, and I'm going to place the stem in there until I feel it's got enough and it looks pretty. And then this project will be complete. This one is just one of those little easy peasy upcycles that you can just make any piece look absolutely gorgeous. So what do you guys think about this one? DIY number 4. Okay, I found this wood sign at my local thrift store and I swooped her on up. And then I've got some recycled decoupage paper, and I picked this up from Unicorn Dust Designs, and I will have her linked in my description box. And I'm just going to get an idea here on how I want it setting, and I want the majority of that polar bear in there. So what I'm going to do is I am going to rub my fingernail along the edge, creasing that paper just to make it easier for me to trim out the rest of this paper. And sorry my head's in the way. I have a new setup on my camera, and well, now I'm working on that. It was a focus issue and now it's a head issue. It'll get better. But you can see how it just puts creases in that paper, and I just fold it over just to make them even stand out more. But then I'm just going to trim the remainder of this paper out. And I go ahead and take the color Crinoline, and this is in a DIY paint, and I am going to cover up the area where those owls are sitting, and I do 2.5-ish coats. And once that paint has been dried down, I'm going to go ahead and take clear liquid patina, and I am going to go ahead and put that all over the surface, dry it down with my heat gun. And because this paper is so large, I decided I'm going to go ahead and just use the iron method. I was afraid if I did it any other way, I would have a lot of wrinkles, and since I'm selling this, I did not want to try to do that. And so yeah, iron on, here we go. But I'm just going to lay the paper out, smooth it out with my hands, and then I'm going to grab a Teflon sheet and place it over top of the paper. And this is just really going to protect my paper from anything that might be on my iron, which there was, because I use this iron for everything, I think. But I'm just going to take that iron, which I have on medium heat, and I am just going to go over my Teflon sheet. And I pull it up here and there just to see how well it's getting the wrinkles out. And I did end up having to go over this a couple of times, but in the end, it looks really smooth and really pretty. And once I've got that on there, I'm just going to take a little fingernail file, and I'm going to go around the edges, and I'm going to file off any excess paper. Now, since this paper isn't laying over an edge, it's more a little above, just kind of have to work with it. And you can see here, it's doing a fine job, and it looks so much better. And once that's all trimmed up, we will just wipe all that sanding dust down. And then I'm going to take that clear patina and I am going to put a coat on top, just sealing in that paper, protecting it from being torn and just protecting it. Okay, so I just took some greenery, some of these sugar berries. I made a little burlap
bow. It's the same way I made it in my air freshener can angel video, which I'll be sure to link up in the top in the iCards, and I'll also put in the description box if you want to see how I made that, which is real simple. You just pinch a piece of burlap together, round out the edges. But and then this green pick with the pine cone on it, I had in my stash. But I am going to put that right up here.
And after I trim off the remainder part of that stem, I'm just going to take a bunch of hot glue and secure that in place. And then this project will be finished. I hope you guys will let me know which of these 4 projects was your favorite. I really love to hear from you guys. Your comments are what keeps me motivated to do this every week. And again, if you haven't subscribed, I really hope you will consider hitting that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to hit that notification bell so YouTube will let you know when I upload a new video. And hey, feel free to share, because sharing is caring, like they say. And thanks again, you guys. Have a wonderful week, and I hope to see you on Whatnot tomorrow morning.